Well, if you buy a house now, you're certainly going to pay later. And it's not going to be just your mortgage that you're going to be paying off because we're in a housing moratorium for my investment group. We're not buying any. Now, we've been very, very careful since March of 2022, but we're really careful now. My timing model, they sometimes call this the winner's curse. That's the ones that have been trying to buy a property, trying so hard to buy a property, and you finally get one, and it's really late to the game, and prices drop because we're pretty fully valued. We're starting to see warning signs everywhere. We've been talking about this for a long time. So here it is. I think it's upon us. Let me go to my very first slide, and let's just talk about that and see what we're talking about, because right now we're at a housing moratorium, and we want you to be very, very careful as to what you're doing out there, because this is a jeopardy period. Let me go to my next slide. Now, we may have talked about this ad infinitum. We've been talking about this a lot, is the fact that we've got one of the largest credit contractions we've ever seen. Most of the commercial banks and a lot of the money markets are running out of cash. This is a liquidity issue. This is a real problem for us with liquidity, as we've talked about over and over and over again. Liquidity is the fuel for the economy when they start taking that fuel out. And look at where that's at. It's the second largest credit contraction we've ever had. And it's probably going to come to first, because I don't see any reason that this is going to stop. Matter of fact, we could start seeing some deflation, which is a contraction of the credit supply. It's not necessarily prices coming down. Deflation talks about the fact that credit deflates. And when you start having defaults, which we're seeing now in the office and the hospitality segments, well, someone's going to have to pay that freight. Because, now instead of having $1 billion loan, now you've got a $500 million loan. So what happened to that $500 million? It deflated, and that's a credit contraction. Now, we've been talking about possibly having a credit event that very possibly could be coming. So let me go away to the next slide. Now, we still have the inverted yield curve. This hasn't gone anywhere. This is still in play. Still pretty close to almost a full point. It's pretty historic in what we have so far as a inversion. You have to go back all the way back to like 1980s to see this. Now, I know in my timing model, I talked that we're going to peak the third quarter of 2023, and we are in the third quarter of 2023. And that's a peak. Doesn't mean it's going to crash, going into fourth quarter. It just means that prices should stabilize and probably reach their zenith and then come down from there. We have seen this before. Let me go on the next slide. We actually even have a date for the inversion. Now, you remember that we talked about the fact that we thought we peaked in the first peak for the real estate market. The most important one came in March of 2022. Some say April of 2022. Well, we're not going to quibble over 30 days, but it was in that time frame. And again, it depends on what the region that you're in, because each one of these is just a little different. But we know that that's where we peaked. That was where, that was the first peak. We have two peaks. Generally, it's like a double top if you're talking about for equities in the housing markets. It's two peaks. So if you see that first peak came in first quarter of 2022, March or April, and that's where we had all that mania. That's where you had FOMO. Everybody had to buy a house. That's where you're getting multiple offers. People were selling their homes in a day or two, getting 30 offers on a property in 24 hours. Well, that's over with now. Now we're coming to the point where we're getting some sensibility. Interest rates have gone up, and of course, people buy payments. You know that this isn't anything new to you. And we're talking about the fact that we can see the inversion. We even have a date. You can see it on the Federal Reserve electronic data. It actually came in July 5th of 2022, and it has just continued. So we are seeing banks and lenders are tightening their credit standards. They're, of course, losing money. A lot of these, we've been talking about these regional banks and how they are really the ones that put out a lot of their capital for local projects. And, when you have hotels that just default, and real estate investment trusts that default and just give them back to the banks, well, the banks now have to take these back. They're not in the office business. They're not in the hospitality business. And here they have this asset, so they lose money on it, and they become very reticent as to continue to lend. And they haven't got as much capital lend because they took losses. And this is coming, and banks are tightening. We just have seen this. Now we're talking about today that we're seeing that a good credit is 740. That's good credit, not great credit. That's good credit. Now I'm going to tell you, FHA thinks you got good credit if you're down in the low sixes. But now if you want to borrow money, you need to be about 740. And like 810, 820 is perfect. So this is pretty good credit. And that's what the lenders think you need to have to get a loan. So that has come a long ways in a very short period of time. This is going to slow the economy down. So I'm warning you right now, if you buy a property now, you are going to lose money. So let me go to my next slide. So what does this mean for you? It means exactly what I said. If you buy something, you are going to lose money. Now, if you're fortunate enough to be able to afford a house, and, again, we've talked about the fact that housing is more than an investment. It is for your family. It gives great stability. You get to be a member of the community. Your kids they sleep in the same place year after year after year. They develop, they know the neighbors, they know the kids. It's really, really good for you. But if you're an investor and liquidity is being withdrawn, and we're seeing underwriting standards get even worse than what they were, well, this is not a good thing. This is really tough. It means it's very difficult to buy a property, and it has to be very compelling for us to buy it. Now, I'm not saying don't buy anything. I'm just saying that you have to be aware of the fact that we have risk. Risk is rising and rising quickly in our marketplace. And if you don't understand that, this is how you lose money. And, there's only two things that we want as investors. Number one is we want to make money. We want to get a return on our capital. That's why we're called risk takers. We want to get a return on our capital. And we don't want to lose money. So yes, we're a risk taker, but we're not a risky taker. So when we start seeing the red flags come up, and they are just flying like crazy right now, you need to pause. If you don't pause, you're going to get burned. And capital is very, very difficult to get together. Now, I've been telling all my investors that we are going to have an incredible buying opportunity coming to us. You just need to keep your capital contained. Make sure that your credit is in really good shape and that your income streams are good. So protect your job. If your job is at risk, go find another one. Make yourself invaluable to the company. Get extra certificates, get extra positions so that you are one of the few people. Take the extra hours. Volunteer for things. Make sure that you're involved at your work, that they think of you, that you don't lose your job. If your company starts laying people off, you'll be the last ones to do that. You want to protect that income stream, protect the job, protect your credit, and we are going to make a fortune coming along, but not yet. We're going to tell you. Let me go away to the next slide here, and let's just talk about this, and let's see what we've got. So we've been talking about deflation. Yes, we're probably going to have deflation coming along. We're going to have deflation because we are starting to see some of the things that we're starting to see with prices are coming down. So remember, November of 2020, I told you inflation after like 15 years, 20 years of very benign inflation. I told you that I could see inflation coming into the PPI, was coming into the pipeline. And now I'm telling you that we're seeing deflation. You can see deflation in the defaults that are taking place. That's a monetary deflation. And we are going to have price deflation as well. I just got this, 3-4 weeks ago. This is demand for final processed goods is down 9.26%. This is at the producer price index level. And what would cause that? What would cause prices to go down? Let's just think about that. Let's keep that in our forefront. What would cause that to happen? So we're seeing export prices down 12%. We're seeing import prices down 6%. What causes that? Well, recession causes that 100% of the time. Recession will kill inflation. Matter of fact, it probably is going to cause deflation. You can see what's going on in China. And look at this. I just got this like a few days ago. It says temporary job indicator. It has predicted every recession we've come along. And that's when temporary jobs go away. That's because they don't need you anymore. So all you part-timers that want to work, 20 hours a week, want to work as a temp, maybe get called in, maybe get called out. Well, there's no need for you at the moment. So that means that there's a reason you're not getting a job is because we're heading into a recession. So what's the implications for this? So look at this. So we're seeing temporary jobs go away. We're seeing that interest rates go up. We're starting to see that there's fewer and fewer homes being sold. And now we're seeing retail sales dropping. Well, what's the implications for that? What do you think is happening when you start seeing retail sales go down? We're a consumer nation. 80% of our GDP is based on consumerism. We buy just about everything. It's a sport here in the United States. What is the implication for it? All these places are at risk. Nordstrom's is at risk. Bed Bath & Beyond is at risk for bankruptcy. Foot Locker is at risk. Dollar General's at risk. And here in Scottsdale, we've got a big presence for CVS corporates, big presence here. We're just hearing that 100 people have been laid off. This is like this week here in Scottsdale, Arizona, from CVS. So that's what the implications are for it, is that when you start seeing retail slow down, all these big brands can go down. And what's the implication for that? Well, people are going to lose their jobs. Well, what about the structures? Who's the owners that are owning, Bed Bath & Beyond's got what, 10, 15, 20,000 square feet? What happens if they go bankrupt? Not only do people lose their jobs and all the suppliers and stuff, they probably aren't going to get paid their final bills, but who's holding the bag for the building? What about who's going to be paying the taxes, and what happens to the sales? What happens to the sales tax revenues? So when these people start losing money and they start closing down, sales tax goes away. The counties have trouble. The investors have trouble. People that work there have trouble. There's lots and lots of implications to this. And I'm going to tell you right now that we're seeing interest rates go up. This is a bank monitor from July of 2023. Look at this one. I just got this. This is August 21st. Today is the 22nd. And I'm hearing that interest rates may have gone to 8% on some of these products. 8%. So yesterday they were at 7.55. Now they're at 8%. And of course, I think that's going to bounces around a little bit with the bond market. But, the bonds have been on a tear, interest rates going up. And of course, bond value is dropping. But 30-year mortgage rates at 7.5%. Everybody buys, everybody, and I mean everybody buys payments. So you can afford $1 million home at 2.5%, 3.5%, a whole lot easier than you can at 7.5%. Here we are in Arizona. We've got all these mountain homes, and interest rates used to be very, very easy to afford a second home in the mountains. A weekend home for the summer. Now a summer home is going to cost you $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year, so that you can go up to the mountains during summer. So to have a house for 3 months is going to cost you $70,000. I don't think so. What do you think is going to happen to? What do you think the implication is going to be? These second home buyers. What do you think is going to happen? How many people can afford a $70,000 to $80,000 a year to have a weekend home? May, June, July, and August. That's a lot of money for that. So that's what that implication is. We talk about this. Everybody pays payments, and they've doubled in 18 months. It's so bad that it's actually cheaper for you to go ahead and rent a place than to buy it. That's just one of the simple metrics that we use. It's a simple calculation. So when it's cheaper for you to rent a house than to buy it, well, then why would you buy it? And that is a bad sign that prices have probably peaked. And again, keep in mind, we're going to talk about my timing model coming up here, but that's what we're seeing. Now we're seeing home sales prices at new homes declining. Builders are scared to death. They want to get out of their products. They're just literally scared to death. When you're a builder, you always have to have land. You have to have land. You're buying land in advance, knowing that you're going to be developing, because it takes a while. You've got to get zoning done. You've got to bring in the sewers and the water and the electric. You got to plat it all out. You got to do a lot of your drainage and vegetation surveys and lots of sewer surveys and water surveys. So it takes a while. So you're buying land 2, 3, 4 years in advance. Well, land doesn't earn an income. It just is an expense. So if you bought big land banks, say about 1,000 acres and you're paying 4% for it, well, I'm going to tell you, a year later, now you're paying 8, 9, 10, 12% for that. And of course, it doesn't bring any income in. So these builders want to get rid of this stuff in the worst kind of way. And they are dropping prices to get rid of their inventory. Look at this. We're seeing them build like crazy. No new permits, but they're building like crazy because they want to build out their land banks. They want to get rid of them. Builders build out their land banks to get rid of it. So look at this. We're seeing them sell as fast as they possibly can. And here's the crazy thing. Look at this. Look at this. Builders are selling off as fast as they can, and the existing homes sales have dropped to pre-COVID levels. That's a really drastic drop because when we had COVID, it was terrible. So we're dropping to pre-COVID levels. And I'm going to tell you, when you start seeing existing homes are about the same price as a new home, well, who's going to be buying an existing home? They're going to be going after the builders because the builders are scared to death. And we're seeing existing pending sales are falling. This is a national survey, of course. We're here in Phoenix. Phoenix, Texas, and Florida are going to be completely different than the rest of the country because that's where everybody is moving. These are the three demographics that are properties that are really going to go well. So we're seeing median new existing home sales prices are almost the same as what a new home is. And that is just a big negative for us because the builders want to get rid of it. I'm going to tell you, they are raising commission for us realtors. They're doing appliance packages. They're doing blind packages. They're putting in landscape, front and back landscape. They're doing turnkey. So they give you all three of them to buy your interest rates down. They want to get rid of these properties. So if you want to buy something, go buy a builder. Go beat them up. They'll be happy to sell you a property because they're getting rid of their dirt. And the way they do this is to build it out. And they're scared to death. They've seen this before. A lot of them lost their businesses in the 2008, 2009, 2010, and it became where they just stopped, and it hasn't stopped yet, but they've seen this movie before and they want nothing to do with it. And this is what we're seeing. I'm going to tell you this real estate is not just here local. It is all across the country, all across the globe. Now, Zhongzi Enterprises is a Chinese shadow banking firm that is missing their payments. And Country Gardens, which is China's largest. Now, Evergrande was in the news not too long ago. Evergrande was one of the largest builders in China, not the largest, one of the largest, and they defaulted. That was last year. Just when they defaulted, you could feel that China quaked just a little bit. They were, they had a tremor. Well, look at this. So Country Gardens is talking about. I'm getting ahead of myself. So Country Gardens has missed their payments as well. So let me go to my next slide and let's just talk about the Chinese market as well. So this is really coming to the crux of us. And you have to realize that we are every last one of us are connected. So in China, the Chinese don't put their wealth in the banks. They don't put their wealth into bonds. They don't put their wealth into stocks. They don't put it into annuities. They buy real estate. And that's where they have all of their wealth. And one of the wealthiest and biggest asset classes in the world is the Chinese real estate market. Now, I want to tell you that right here up on top, we've got 11 million vacant buildings in inventory. And we are looking to the point where they could literally wobble. So we're talking about that. We just had Evergrande go back, and we just had Country Gardens is wobbling as well. And this is the number one asset in the world. Now, if this starts to have trouble, these prices could come down. And if they come down, it's going to cause all kinds of trouble in China because Country Gardens has missed their loan payments. They're not making their payments. And what happens in China is that they sell a product, and then they use that money that you're selling it. Then they're going to build like 500 properties, so they need 500 buyers. So while they're selling this 500 unit building, they're taking the money that they earn from that building and they're building another building, waiting until they can get 500 buyers. And then once they get the 500 buyers, they'll start construction. In the meantime, they take the money, and that money goes to work on another project. Now, they're getting to the point where they can't finish these projects because they're missing their loan payments. So not only are the buyers' money that they've used already, it's gone, but they're missing the loans. Their operating capital, that's gone too. And when we see this on a scale of Country Gardens, now this is in the second most largest economy in the world, this is causing major problems for us. So I want you to look real close to this. This is my model. This is stylized. In the actual calculations, there are two tops. Now, I firmly believe the first top is in. And this model has been so accurate, it has absolutely positively identified the two corrections. Because that's kind of unusual in a cycle. You get two. This model showed the two corrections, no problem at all. We knew that the corrections were a buying opportunity for us because we had the explosive phase and the accumulation phase coming, and we're just completing the explosive phase. And that is a blast. That is a great blast. This is what we just came through. Everybody's talking when they're at the bars with their cocktail parties. They're talking about all the real estate they've bought, how much money they are making. You know, they're buying motorhomes, buying yachts. They're out on these world cruises because they've made so much money in their real estate. And that's the explosive phase. But when you get up to the top, that's called the winner's curse, because anyone who hasn't bought, they're the last ones to buy. They're the last people in. So that explosive phase is a really fun phase. When it completes and starts coming down the right side, that's not so fun. And that's what we're heading into. That's why we as investors have not bought any new capital since then. Now, did you understand the difference here? We haven't put any new capital in. We haven't put any of our hard-earned cash. We've been doing 1031 exchanges, and we've been moving our portfolios around. This is money that's already been seasoned. It's already run up. We've had great response with our capital gains, and we're just changing our portfolios. I'm getting a lot of people in what I call the endangered cities that are from, Seattle, Portland, Idaho, certainly from Los Angeles, and we have tons and tons of people coming out of California, San Diego, and Los Angeles for sure. But Minnesota, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago, all these people are coming here to my hometown, which is in Scottsdale, Arizona. That's the Phoenix, Maricopa County market. It's just we've been exploding. So we're not going to be immune from these problems coming in, but we're going to do a lot better than a lot of other counties. So we're strongly recommending that if you're in one of these endangered cities, you need to start talking to your financial advisor and say, what's the 5-year outlook here? Because if we don't sell now, you got to figure you're going to be at least 5, maybe longer in that marketplace. And if it doesn't look good, then what are you doing there? Let's go back to my first 2 rules. We want to make money. We don't want to lose money. Those are the only things we're concerned about. And if you're in a place like Chicago or Portland, what are you doing there? These are properties that are at risk. They could easily go Baltimore or Detroit. And this is where prices have dropped 60-70%. By the way, while we're talking about this, I can use your help too. If you like the content we're bringing, we're trying to bring really good information to you. If you like this, subscribe. We're not going to try and sell you anything, but it really helps with YouTube. And give us a thumbs up. And I'd love to hear your comments. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. What are you experiencing in your marketplaces? What's going on? Let me get back to my video here. I'll get off that soapbox and onto this. So we think we're pretty close to the top here. So let me go to my next slide. So what does this mean? What does this mean for you? What does this mean for you as an investor? What does this mean to you as a first-time home buyer? Well, I'm going to tell you, if you're an investor at all, someone is going to take very, very steep losses. They're going to lose a ton of money. They're just going to lose an absolute fortune. Someone is going to do that. You need to talk to, if you're in the financial markets, the equity markets, and the bond markets, you need to talk to your financial guy and say, what's my exposure to the banks? What's my exposure to the bonds? Do I have any money that's at risk with the REITs or office buildings, or people are exposed to that? Someone is going to take steep losses. And of course, when they start taking losses, that means that the whole economy is going to contract. There's going to be less gasolines used. There's going to be less people aren't going to buy pizzas. They're not going to go to the ball games. They're not going to go to the movies. They're not going to go to the theaters. They're not going to go to the bars. They're going to pull in their horns, and they're going to become very conservative, and everything is going to contract. And if your business is at risk, you need to start thinking, what am I going to do about that? Let me go to my next slide. So look, this is what we're seeing. We're seeing this right now. And I'm going to tell you, I'm harping about this. We've seen this for a while. I probably used this before. You can see where I've labeled peak one. That is just as clear as a bell. Peak one is in, and I think we are doing peak two. And I think peak two is coming right up. I think that's the third quarter of 2023. And that doesn't mean it's going to just fall off a cliff, but it means it's probably not going to go up anymore. So classically, once you go to peak one, it comes down about 10.5 to 11%. This one came down 10.6%. Just textbook perfect. You recover 5 or 6%. That is the second peak, and then it rolls over. And I think we're very, very close to rolling over on these things. So if you're buying something now, then I hope to goodness that you're planning on keeping this for a very long time, because I think that we are very, very close to that second peak. So let me go to the next slide. So last people to buy, we actually call this the winner's curse, because you think that you get such a great deal, you finally get to buy a property, and lo and behold, you're at the top. So I think it was March 2022. I think we're forming a second peak a year and a half later. I think it's going to be, if you had to ask me, I'm going to say sometimes next month in September. Could be before then. I think you're going to start to realize it. I think it's going to coincide with the recession. I think we're probably in that recession already. We just haven't recognized it yet. Remember, we can tell in the rear view mirror. We can always do that, but we don't always know in advance that that's what's going on. Let me go to my next slide here. Now, I'm going to tell you, here's some of the concerns we have. This is a major, major concern. And I've often talked about this before, is where's the supply going to come where we're oversupplied? Here's where it's going to come. So the get rich quick scheme was the VRBOs and the Airbnbs. We're going to make $10,000 on a weekend. We're going to rent it 4 weekends out of the month. We're going to make $30,000, $40,000 a month on this building, and we're all going to get rich. Well, that is just not happening. So here we are. We've got an Airbnb and VRBOs listed right now. We have 936,000 VRBOs available. And that's available for rental. And there are only 554,000 homes available. So there's almost twice as many Airbnbs. Now, to me, that is a lot of inventory that can possibly come. And, a lot of this inventory is multifamily homes. They're basically condos. They're so much easier than doing a single family home. People just come in for the weekend. They got a pool and, landscapes. So much easier for someone to do an Airbnb. It's kind of like a hotel room. That's what they're used to. And there's just going to be thousands and thousands of thousands. And I'm going to tell you right now, that they're already, let me go to my next slide here. You can already see the fact that we're down about 50%. So all of that income that you thought you were going to make, well, I'm here to tell you, you're not going to make it. It's down 48% here in Phoenix. And of course, we had Super Bowl this year, And I'm going to tell you, there was such a mania. These people that had Airbnbs and VRBOs, they were just like walking on air. They just thought they were just going to become rich over the Super Bowl. And here's what happened. Only about half of the VRBOs got leased for the Super Bowl. A lot of people didn't get anywhere near what they thought they were going to get. And this continues. So we're looking at having VRBOs and Airbnbs with their net revenues down 50%. Well, I'm here to tell you, how in the world can you run a business at 50% occupancy, 50% of what your pro forma thought you were going to get? 50%, that means you are losing money. And those that are losing money, they have two choices. They can either give the house back or they can sell it. Now, they'll probably start to sell it first, but we could easily get a flood of these furnished rentals coming to market. So, and that's what happened. So they're furnished rentals. So you had a big pop. People went out, bought furniture, bought TVs, bought electronics. They bought kitchen sets, dining room sets. They bought bedroom sets, linens, just about everything. And it's now sitting vacant. So you're going to have a flood of that stuff coming back. And no, of course, no one's going to be buying that because there's just going to be flooded. So again, we're talking about being at the end of that cycle. So let me just go to my next slide and let's see what we've got here. Now, we're going to pick on Austin here for a second. So on the left side, you can see that we have 3,329 homes for sale in Austin, Texas. 3,329. And this is like right now here in August of 2023. I got this from Danielle DiMartino Booth. She does just phenomenal business that was sent to me for one of her slides. It's very, very current, very, very apropos. Austin, Texas, 3,300 homes for sale. Over 12,000 Airbnbs available. Over 12,000. So we have 4 times the amount of Airbnbs as there are homes for sale. And you have to know that there's only a matter of time before these rentals become homes for sale. And they come out of out of their portfolio and out into the marketplace. So I think that's probably going to be where a lot of this inventory is going to come. That's what got sucked up into the inventory. So it's going to be coming back out. Let me go to my slide. Here's the other thing that we're starting to see. So I want to tell you that we are starting to see inventory build. Now, I know, here in Scottsdale, we don't have a big inventory. Scottsdale is blessed with being one of those places that people want to come to. I will tell you that we're not going to be immune to this. We're starting to see prices soften just a little bit. Here in Maricopa County, we're starting to get a little bit of inventory build in some of the less desirable areas. But when we start talking about inventory build, so like San Ramon, California is up 138% since January. Coeur d'Alene up 88%. Austin up 54%. San Jose up 48%. And in 10th position, Nashville, Tennessee up 38%. So we're starting to see inventory build. Once you start seeing inventory build, it is just a precursor for prices to come down. So I'm going to tell you, again, let me just reiterate. We are very, very close to the top of the marketplace. We are very, very close to looking at a completion of the cycle. And I would think that you need to really start saving your money, because when you come down on the right side, we are going to have such an opportunity to buy things like nobody's business. Now I'm going to tell you, look at this, look at my model. And here's Charles Hughes Smith's model. You see these two? It's pretty amazing that they look very, very similar. So Charles Hughes Smith is tracking doing his own model, and he's talking about the housing bubble. I've used this slide before. Now here's his housing bubble, and he's doing retracement on bubble symmetry. So he thinks that we could have 30% nationwide retracement. I agree with him 100%. I think it could be 35%. I think 35% is more likely than just 30. He thinks so if we retrace the entire amount, we could come down 60%. Well, I'll tell you, 60% retracement, that would be pretty devastating. That'd be a 2008, 2009 scenario. And is it possible? Absolutely. It's certainly possible. We could certainly see something like that. So I'm telling you that there's a timing issue. So if we've got seasoned properties, no problem. So I would say if you're seasoned properties, this is what we've bought them for, is for them to provide us cash flow in difficult times. That's exactly what they are. They're a lifeboat for difficult times, and they're going to provide us an income stream. So there's really no reason to sell them. They're going to give us a great, great inventory. Believe me, I would love to sell your inventory. I make money by selling these things, and I'm telling you to hold on to it. If they got a good cash flow, hold those properties. Now, let me do the caveat to this. If you are in an endangered city, and I'm going to tell you, I've enumerated them before, and I just talked about them. So if you're in like Portland, or if you're in Boise, or if you are in Madison, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Chicago, Illinois, for sure, you really need to start thinking to myself as an investor, what's going to happen to my investment? 2 rules: make money, don't lose money. So if you are in these cities, it could be that you not only are you going to take a market risk, but you could take a city and locational and geographic risk that you're not counting on. And that could come down pretty doggone drastically. And you could be down here in this 60% retracement. That would be devastating for most people. So after all this bad news, what does this mean for us? What in the world does this mean for us? How should we position our portfolio? Well, I'm going to tell you, so real assets, I'm going to tell you, are going to, they've been underperforming. They are no longer going to be underperforming. Inflation is going to be with us for a while. We're a little concerned about the U.S. dollar. That's for another video. But if the U.S. dollar is at 103 and it came down to 72 or 73, which is done before, then you could see a 30 or 40% inflation here in the United States. That could easily happen. The U.S. dollar is under attack. So here's the other thing in my business is that we still have a 6.5 million single family homes under build. We have a shortage of homes, particularly in Florida, Texas, and Arizona. We just let in probably 1 million or 2 million people across our borders. They all need a place to live. They're living in tents in New York City, in their parks. And they all are going to need a place to live. This is going to put huge, huge pressure on housing. And we are going to get a great, great buying opportunity. Stay with us. I would love you to call me, and we'll try and figure out what's good for you. Because if you are in any of these cities, they are at risk. You need to we need to talk about a 1031 exchange. And that is no capital gains event. We're going to defer the capital gains. This is done all the time. We can easily sell your house in Seattle and buy 2 here in Phoenix. Sell your place in California, buy 2 here in Phoenix. And this will increase your portfolio, and you'll get into a much, much, much better marketplace. So here's what's going on here. I'm going to do this really, really quickly so that you can see. The Wall Street Journal just did a documentary on R303. It is just amazing. We are growing like crazy. So we just have Wolf Sub-Zero just open up a factory. We've got Nestle's opening up a factory. Amazon has put up a distribution center. UPS, Ball, Red Bull. We have 17 warehouses of over 1 million square feet under construction right now, and they are all leased out, waiting for them to be finished because it's cheaper to offload in Long Beach, truck it over here to Phoenix, Arizona, and distribute from Arizona. It's like 30-40% of it. And that's what's going on here. We're becoming another inland empire. Let me go to the next slide. We just got 4,000 acres dedicated from the state to the BNSF Railroad, and we're going to put in an intermodal complex there that's going to have rail, and it's going to have trucking, and it's going to bring in jobs. Billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of revenue are coming in here, and thousands of jobs. Let me go to my next one. This is even more so. So here in Scottsdale, Arizona, we're named the number 1 or number 3 for tenants in the United States because they want to come here. We've got startups. We've got great housing. And it'd be really good for you. So if you'd like to talk to me, I would love for you to talk to you. Right at the moment, we're not buying. We're doing 1031 exchanges. We're trying to get you into much, much better marketplaces. We're more than happy to represent you here. More than happy to talk to you and your spouse, your financial planner, your accountant. Let's make a plan as what's good for you. Let's do this in a organized fashion. If I can help in any way possible, please let me know. We're here in Phoenix. My very, very best to you. Bye-bye now.